The other thing that I think is frustrating, and it has to frustrate you as a band, especially in the 80s, but also in the probably to the mid 90s, the big bands took care of the little bands. It always took care, the bands fed the scene. All of my CDs, whether it's my hair metal years or my death metal years or whatever era I was in myself, was always fed. There was always a big band. Like in 1990, I kind of transitioned out of hair metal into death
Hmm.
metal. And
Right.
I started where most people started. I started with Cannibal Corpse, Butchered at Birth, and then Sepultura Arise.
Oh,
Those were my two starters of extreme metal. But then when I saw those bands, then I would see who's this Immolation band or who's
yep.
this,
Malevolent creation.
yes,
Yeah.
and you would be, and even in the 80s they did that. I remember seeing Kiss and getting slaughtered, discovering Slaughter because I was there in time to see
Yeah.
Kiss or earlier. You know, the establishment used to take care of the scene. I don't think the establishment cares about the scene anymore. The
No.
establishment's fine if it dies as long as they still have a gig. And that's horrible. I think that does more damage than even Spotify or anything has done.
I think you're right. And going back to the 80s and 90s, tours that would have three and four bands back then were usually not fairly, I wouldn't say similar in style, but you could absorb all the bands on a bill. We
Mhm.
were just, a friend of mine were just talking about the Complete Control tour of 1992, which was Obituary, Cannibal Corpse, um, Agnostic Front,
Ugh, yeah.
and Malevolent Creation, I believe. Like Agnostic Front being in that band, like the oddball band,
Mhm.
but they were so well established that that show went over like gangbusters where I
Sure.
saw it, And I think now, touring bands, it's all buy-ons now. It's
Mhm.
not like, hey, we want to take out a younger band that we believe in. It's like, well, who wants to pay the most for this
Whose
support
dad has
slot
a
on the
trust
tour?
fund.
Exactly, exactly. So you're right. The establishment doesn't take care of itself. The music industry, record labels don't want to develop bands like they used to. And if you've got somebody who's on the way up, well, put somebody there on that support slot to ride their coattails in there and have those fans pick up on this band. That really doesn't exist anymore. And I kind of miss those years as well when you went to see your favorite band or
Mhm.
band that you've been waiting to see because they're the next big thing. All of a sudden you discover that opening band
Yeah.
or so it's just really not the same way anymore. You're right.
No, it's not. And I mean it's frustrating. I mean, I discovered more than half of my collection from seeing bigger bands. That's just how I've always done it. And then recently, if you go to a big show now, obviously I'll use Metallica because that's the easiest one. Who are they taking out? Pantera that needs no help. Uh,
Yeah.
Wolfgang
Limp
Van
Biscuit,
Halen. Yeah, Limp
Limp Biscuit,
Bizkit.
that they don't need any help.
They don't need any help. Wolfie really is getting handed everything. He
Yeah.
doesn't need the help. It's like, dudes, take out Dirty Honey. And they don't even need the help, but they're still
Yeah.
small enough that they could or Rival Sons or one of those bands could rise up to
Yes.
be that next piece and nobody takes care of them and that's just terrible.
I will say that there's one thing that happened in the last several years that I thought was fantastic. And there's a band from St. Joseph, Missouri, which is a small town about 30 or 40 miles from Kansas City, Missouri. A three-piece band with three brothers in the band. They're called Radke,
Okay.
Radke. They were actually on Century Media, put out one of their records about 10 years ago. Small, kind of I mean, you would call them, I guess, a punk band, but they've got a lot of different styles. They did three or four shows with the Foo Fighters, took
Oh,
them out.
okay.
And so that to me, I was like, how did that I don't even want to know how that happened. The band Radke is managed by their father,
Okay,
so
right.
it's really a good story, but that's very few and far between.
Mhm.
Anything anymore, like any major tour, you get like Radio Band out with Radio Band with
Yeah.
support from Radio Band. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's boring.